Okay. Hi, my name is Tracy Craig. I'll be moderating this meeting tonight. This is Alameda County Department of Environmental Health's community meeting to discuss the cleanup of the 2001 Ashby Avenue project site. That site has been cleared for redevelopment by the city of Berkeley. With me tonight is Dylan Rowe, who's the chief of Alameda County Department of Environmental Health, Land and Water. Also Drew York, who is the project manager with Alameda County for this project. We also have representatives of Resources for Community Development, the nonprofit developer that will be developing the site, as well as their technical consultant, Nino and Moore. And again, and I also have John Vermani here, who is like the genius behind the scene here doing everything for us. So next slide, John. I think probably most folks know where this site is located. It's in Berkeley, right off the Battle Line and Ashby Avenue. In a fairly residential area. Next slide. Okay. The property has been cleared for redevelopment by the city of Berkeley. It's owned by Resources for Community Development. The site is currently vacant and fenced. And important to note that Resources for Community Development did not contaminate the site, but they are addressing historic contamination so the site can be put back to development. And also, I think what's important to note is that we're here tonight to discuss the remediation of the site, which is a fancy word for the cleanup of the site. So how contamination will be addressed. That's what Alameda County oversees. We're not here to discuss the development. The development has been approved by Berkeley. Next slide, please. Okay, now I'm going to hand this over to Dylan Rowe.
So good evening, everybody. My name is Dylan Rowe. I am the chief of the Land and Water Protection Division for Alameda County Department of Environmental Health. And we are the oversight agency, as Tracy said, for the cleanup and investigation of subsurface contamination. There are a lot of other people involved in this, other regulatory agencies. And this slide kind of shows some of them. The developer, Resources for Community Development, has entered into a voluntary agreement with Alameda County for the oversight of the cleanup. Nino and Moore is their environmental consultant, and there are representatives on the call tonight, and they're the ones that are developing corrective action plans for submittal for our review and approval, for environmental health review and approval. General contractor is not on the call. And then more importantly, there is the city of Berkeley and the Bay Area Air Quality Management District, who have big roles in development projects. And they are not here, and we will not be talking about the development itself, just the contamination. Next slide. And I'm just going to say this. I don't usually get the opportunity to say this, but I don't live very far from this site. I am a resident of Berkeley. I know this area very well. And so, you know, it doesn't change how we deal with things, but this is the community I live in. And so we're going to treat this with the respect it needs to be treated with and make sure that contamination is cleaned up that is on the site prior to or during the development. So the environmental conditions, this property has been many different parcels over history, and has had a lot of different uses, including residential structures, gas stations, machine shops and plating shops. It's had oil storage buildings. It's had sign painting businesses and a bank. And as a result of historic land use, there have been releases to the subsurface. So in soil, groundwater, and soil vapor. In soil, there are metals. Lead is the primary one. Petroleum products, solvents, and chlorinated biphenyls. So PCBs. In soil, gas, and groundwater, there are volatile organic compounds, often and of most particular interest or concern is the chlorinated solvents that are often used in degreasing and plating and machine shops. You often see that. So there have been ongoing investigations since 2019. Resources for Community Development have been working with their consultants when they were looking at the site and making a decision whether they were going to purchase the site and redevelop. And they came into us, and we have last year, and we signed this agreement with them, and they have been doing some additional investigation under our oversight. And there is still ongoing investigation that is being conducted at the site to define and refine the remedial design concept we're going to talk about tonight. And then additionally, there will be some offsite investigations planned on the neighboring properties. And that will be something that happens in the future. Next slide. So the way this works is that the developer and their consultants prepare corrective action plans that outline, that give a summary of all the historic contamination and the findings at the site, and then have proposed remediation and mitigation strategies to address the contamination and at the site. Next slide. Oh, sorry. So I'm going to back up. So that document is up on the case file for this site, which is on GeoTracker, and Tracy will talk about that at the end of the slide. How do we get access to that? But it is a public database, and that document is up there, and it is out for a public comment from December 16th to January 21st. We're having this meeting to talk to you about it. And if you have comments on the corrective action plan, then we would like to have those submitted in written format. But the purpose of this meeting is to just discuss in general what's going on here. Next slide. So there are really three primary strategies that are going to occur at the site. In your neighborhood, you have shallow groundwater. Groundwater is not too far below ground surface. And in order to construct this site, regardless of remediation that needs to be done at the site, but in order to construct the site, there's going to be construction dewatering that's going to lower the groundwater table by quite a bit to facilitate excavation up to 13.5 feet to facilitate construction of subsurface car stacker areas, elevators. Those are the main subsurface components. And so the construction dewatering is going to basically be collecting and containerizing or discharging to the sanitary sewer that contractor has not, and we have not seen the plan for that yet. And that basically will be doing two things. It will be lowering the groundwater for the construction, but it will also be removing impacted groundwater, which is a good thing. There's going to be a lot of groundwater removed during construction dewatering, and that is basically a remedial technique called pump and treat. It's extraction, and so that is just a benefit of the fact that the site needs to have construction dewatering. A lot of groundwater will be removed, and the groundwater is impacted with chlorinated solvents. In addition to that groundwater dewatering, there will be excavation of soil. And the soil that will get excavated will have to be managed appropriately. It will be wet, and it will need to have management protocols for dealing with drying the soil out before it gets loaded into trucks and hauled off in streets. But there's going to be excavation of different kinds of things. About 2.5 feet across the entire site will be to remove these shallow soil impacts of metals, petroleum products, and PCBs that have been defined in shallow soil. There are going to be at least one, possibly more than one, targeted excavations for removal of source areas of the solvents. And then, like I said, construction excavation up to 13.5 feet across the site. There also may be some additional groundwater remediation, and that is still being evaluated and will be based on additional data collection that has just recently been collected, and that will be reported to us in the near future. Next slide. So this is just a figure that kind of shows what I just talked about. The blue is across the whole site, but the blue is that shallow soil excavation. The pink area is an area of known source of the solvent source that will be excavated, and the proposed excavation depth at the moment is 8 to 10 feet below ground surface. Again, those excavation depths and areas will be refined based on data that was just recently collected. And then that brown area is where they're going deep, 13.5 feet, just to construct the car stackers. There is contamination up in that area of the property that additional data has just been collected. And again, we have not seen it. So there may be some additional source removal outside of that excavation. The good news about that car stacker construction area is that's a lot of soil that will come out just to facilitate construction, that if there are impacts within that soil column, they will come out and be removed off-site. Next slide. So the other mitigation measure that is will be installed as part of the site redevelopment is a vapor mitigation system underneath this new building. And that consists of a series of piping and a plastic barrier beneath the new foundation. And then the vapors are collected in the piping and vented up through vertical pipes to the roof where they vent to the atmosphere. And then that system, which is called the vapor mitigation system, will be monitored for the life of the improvements or until concentrations in soil vapor are reduced to levels that don't pose a risk. And there will be operations and maintenance of that vapor mitigation system over the long haul. Next slide. So this is going to be a big excavation and a big groundwater dewatering. And we are still, environmental health is still working and we'll be meeting with the contractor and CDA and their consultant next week to continue to talk about specifics of how the sequencing of this work. There's the work that needs to be done, and then there's the protection that we want to ensure the community has during this work. And it's going to get a little complicated here because, in fact, the city of Berkeley is the redevelopment agency, is the permitting agency. And so there's going to be work that goes on long after environmental health's role is finished. But while there is subsurface work going on at the site, which is what we are overseeing, we are going to make sure that there are community protection measures in place that limit impacts to the adjacent community and to the construction workers. And the types of impacts that we would that could occur are direct contact with soil, ingestion if somebody were to eat it. More like, the larger potential impact is dust inhalation. And so there's going to be a lot of monitoring and measures to suppress dust during this excavation. Next slide. So there's a lot of documents that are going to explain and have the protocols for what's going to go on here. We are still working on, we aren't, RCD and their consultant and contractor are still working on preparing and submitting final remedial design documents to us. And they will include a final remedial action plan that shows the specifics of excavation so that we understand how much soil will be excavated at the site, how many how that will be dealt with. Will it be stockpiled? How is it going to be dried out before it's moved off site? How it, how many trucks that translates to? How many, what is the staging route of those trucks, the idling of those trucks? City of Berkeley deals with this all the time. There is a ton of construction. We all know about it going on in the city of Berkeley. I have not been involved in any of them, so I don't actually know how they deal with it. But as long as environmental health is involved in this, and there's contaminated soil, we will be having a lot of really strict management about this. Next, so there's a few things that'll happen. There will be, so Tracy, who is the public outreach specialist on this, will be available to field calls. She will send those calls to the appropriate people, whether it's environmental health or the city of Berkeley. There will be contact information on signs. If you are in the community and you are have concerns or complaints about the construction during subsurface work, I encourage you to call Tracy. We will take this very seriously. Once we're out of the ground, environmental health will not be involved, and the city of Berkeley will be your contact. So that's an important thing to know. Next slide. Kind of talked about this, but this is going to be a big piece. There's a lot of trucks. We're going to quantify the number of trucks. We're going to quantify the amount of soil that's being removed, and there will be truck management that limits idle times, prevents track out, has flaggers and traffic signs. There will be entrance and exits. There are a lot of details to work out. This is really the city of Berkeley's deal, which is construction worker parking. But since I'm involved in it, we suspect that there could be complaints about that. There's going to be multiple agencies working on this, but we're going to work with RCD to make sure that anything that's related to the excavation of soil, that the impacts are minimized as much as possible. Next slide. I'm going to turn this over, I think, to you, Tracy, right?
Yes, it's back to me. So first of all, I'm embarrassed I didn't thank all of the attendees for attending. So thank you for taking time out of your evening to attend our meeting. We appreciate it. As Dylan said, we will have site signage, and I've put my number in the chat. It's my cell phone. You can call me at any time with questions or concerns, and that includes nights and weekends as well. We do post all of the environmental reports and fact sheets and public communications on the GeoTracker website, which is the Water Board's website, and we'll have a link to that. And then we'll be issuing regular community updates during Alameda County's portion of the work. Next slide. And this is just basically our schedule. So right now we're in the public comment period, which simply means that we have a draft cleanup plan available, and Dylan just went through the various elements of that. And it's open for the public to look at and comment on. You can do that by emailing either Drew or myself. Additionally, if you'd like tonight, we'd love to hear from you, and we're happy to take comments or questions tonight. We're having the public meeting right now. You can read the rest of the schedule. I think the most important thing that I want to call to your attention is work is supposed to start at the site in early February. So I think you'll probably want to know that. And it will continue the better part of a year. Communications with the community will be ongoing during that entire time. Next slide. And again, here's the GeoTracker, the Water Board's website, where you can find information. There's also Drew York, who is the project manager for Alameda County. His number's there. There's my name and number. Again, you can call me anytime. That's my cell. I truly answer it. And then also we have Nicole Brown, who's representing Resources for Community Development. Nicole, will you raise your hand? She is also available to answer questions about the development itself. And that brings us to the most important part of this presentation, that's hearing from you folks. So I would encourage you at least to put your camera on and introduce yourselves and tell us where your interest lies. And we're happy to answer any questions at this time. You can raise your hand or just unmute yourself. I think if you're an attendee, John, how does that work with an attendee, right? We have to promote them, correct?
Yeah, I just offered everyone the opportunity to be promoted. You can also raise your hand and we can allow you to talk if you don't want to be
Super.
promoted to a panelist.
So again, this is a webinar. If you're an attendee, you don't have audio or visual privileges, but you can accept John's invitation to be promoted. And that way we can see and talk to you, which we would like the opportunity to do. Oh, I think Dale is raising his hand. Dale, please just go ahead and chat.
Dale, you should be able to unmute yourself.
Yes. Sorry, I'm not a he, I'm a she, but that's
Forgive
okay.
me. Thank you for clarifying. My mistake.
My question is kind of is oriented more towards the technical and Nino and Moore may not have gotten to this, and it may not even be in their purview. But if you're going to collect the soil gas vapor seepage under the building, and it looked like you're going to be using a liquid plastic to seal around the intrusive infrastructure that is necessary under buildings in order for them to function, and then collect this material and exhaust it above the roof of the building, will there be any treatment at all, maybe through a carbon filter, of these gases before they are released?
So I'm gonna answer that. There will be a vapor mitigation system. It's a really good question. There's a vapor mitigation system design that has not been submitted to us yet for review. And as part of that design, there are calculations based on the concentrations in the soil gas that will quantify what is expected to be the concentrations of chemicals of concern in the emissions at the stack. And Bay Area Air Quality Management District has very strict permit requirements and quantifies the acceptable levels. They're the people that do all our, our air pollution control levels. And as long as the emissions are below a certain number, then no treatment is required. If the emissions are above and there's testing that is done and verification of all of that, if the testing, if the emissions are above that, then absolutely there is treatment that consists of moving the vapors usually through carbon vessels that treat it before it actually discharges to the atmosphere. And so the Bay Area Air Quality Management District is pretty strict about those emission requirements, and that will be part of the vapor mitigation system design to quantify whether they will need treatment.
Dale, did that answer your question?
Quite well.
Yeah, okay. Other questions that you might have? Do you live near the site?
Around the corner.
Okay.
So I'm very concerned about the development. City is pushing hard for lots of tall buildings. RCD is a very, very good developer and sensitive to the needs of working class and low income people. So I am pleased that they are in charge of this, but I'm a little concerned that the environmental issues of cleanup are quite enormous, and it's going to make it difficult for them to provide market rate housing and housing for blue collar workers, such as we have them anymore, based on the needs of cleaning up this site. And also there's a creek, there's Tyler Creek that starts up on Shattuck and probably runs through the property. We see it all the time on Otis Street and if you go to the Ashby BART station and you go down towards Ashby, you can see Tyler Creek coming through the wall.
Oh, really?
Wow.
Yeah, there's stains on the wall showing constant water feed, especially in the winter. And that's Tyler Creek.
Huh. Drew, will you, I'm just gonna make a note. I appreciate that. Brandon and Nino and more, please note that down. Let's make sure that we are looking at that and addressing that in your remedial action plan. Okay, at least, you know,
Yeah,
discussing.
we'll do, Dylan. I'll make a note as well.
Okay,
Dale, I would encourage you to put your email in the chat. You can just address it to me if you'd like, and we'll make sure that you get updates as they're issued on this property. I'll also give you my email and you can call me at any time.
I have it and I will put that in and I will just kind of send out to you and the county that I'm definitely going to be interested in watching this because there's a lot of concerns here and I don't want to burden RCD. They do an excellent job. They need all the breaks they can get and they're not getting many with this property, but they're going to try.
yeah,
Well, got it, and appreciate your time. Other folks that would like to talk? Because I can talk for all of us. All right, I'm just going to give it a couple minutes. Okay, I'm assuming that, Dale, unless you have any more questions, I don't think our other attendee wants to talk. I do want to note that if you have interested neighbors or business owners or anybody else, this short meeting will be uploaded. And John, we don't have a link for that yet, but Dale, we can send it to you with your email. And we're happy to send it to anybody else. And again, the public comment period runs through, John, help me out here.
January 21st.
21st. So you can email or call us with comments. And we really appreciate people's time and effort. We know you can do other things tonight, so we very much appreciate people coming. Oh, and we have a nice comment, so I'd like to end on this. It says, just appreciate the transparency and info, appreciate you hosting the session. We are new to the area and glad to be able to join tonight. Well, that is a lovely comment, and we are glad you joined as well. Thank you, Maura. And thank you, Dale. And I think our other attendee was named Frank, if I'm not mistaken. Is that correct? Yeah. So thank you, everybody. I wish you the best for your evening. Good night. I'm going to hang on for 5 more minutes in case somebody wants to talk out of the public eye. So I'll stay for 5 or 10 more minutes. Everybody else, you can go enjoy your evening.
okay, thanks, everybody.
Bye
Thank
now.
you.
Thanks,
Good
everyone.
night.
Thanks.